Welcome back for another episode of the Chamber Podcast. My name is Rob Johnson. We have a very exciting show on the docket for you today. Joining me in studio is Mark St. and Michael Sedlak. Both of these gentlemen are local government officials from the Green Oak Township. Welcome, fellas.
Welcome.
Thank you.
First time on the podcast?
Yes, first
Yes.
podcast.
Or first podcast ever, I should say. I know you haven't been on this podcast except I usually host it. So.
First podcast ever.
Excellent. Well, I'll take it easy on you, I promise. No hard-hitting questions. This is not going to be a hardball interview, I promise. We'll see. Midway through, we'll ask some tough questions. Mark, Township Supervisor.
Yes, sir.
What is a Township Supervisor's top-level responsibilities just for the folks at home?
Typically, the supervisor is viewed as the CEO, Chief Fiscal Officer of the township. Under me is the police department, fire department, assessing department, planning and zoning department, ordinance enforcement, and any other department and or duties that are not officially assigned to either the clerk or the treasurer. Also, the utilities. I am the utility director, so I am in charge of sewer and water funds, and most generally, each and every special assessment district, whether it be for weed control for lakes, road paving projects, water projects, sewer projects, they all fall on the supervisor. So keeps me busy, and I'm also the complaint department.
Well, I was going to say those first 3 or 4 responsibilities would seem to fill a full-time job properly.
It does. It does.
So just for my own curiosity, why did you want this job?
That's a good question. I got involved with Green Oak Township in 1992. I was appointed to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I think once you serve as a public official, I got bit. I enjoyed working with the public. I enjoyed helping the residents to achieve what it was they were looking to do. And but I didn't like the way the township was running in 1996, so I ran for trustee. And unfortunately, I ended up elected on one of the most dysfunctional boards in Livingston County. And in 2000, I made the choice to either run for township supervisor and effect a change of Green Oak Township, or I was going to get out of politics altogether. And fortunately, I won, along with Mr. Sedlak and Michael Sedlak. And since 2000, we have made a phenomenal change in the trajectory of the township.
Moving over to you, Michael. So township clerk. So what's a top-level day in the life look like for a township clerk?
Well, the most important responsibility for a township clerk is to conduct the elections. And, of course, that's every 2 years or special elections. And that especially in election years, occupies probably 75% of my time. Beyond that, the clerk is responsible for all the township records, and then payroll, accounts payable, all the accounting functions, so that we're the check and balance for the treasurer's department. I run the cemeteries, do union contract negotiations, and help Mark and when we bring outside businesses in to provide services for the township and negotiate those contracts as well.
I don't know why, but as you guys are talking, it feels like these particular roles are far greater than one person. Does it feel like that sometimes?
Sometimes. I will tell you that, with respect to the roles, yes, it is a job, but also with myself and land divisions. I once sat down with an elderly couple, and they came in and they had tried numerous times to split their land. Their profession was farming, so most farmers don't pay into Social Security. So they had no Social Security. The only thing they had was their land. But because of circumstances, they could never split their land. When they came to me back in 2002, I sat down with the assessor at that time, the zoning administrator at that time, and we had determined that it was appropriate to give them a land division. And when we gave them that land division, I can remember the elderly lady, the wife of the husband, started crying. She was happy that we were able to do something for them. And I think that's the key, is every day, no matter how big or how small, we're able to do something to benefit somebody's life. And I think that's the definition of a public official.
Yeah, public service, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's how
Absolutely.
it should be.
That's the way it should be. When, many times I'll have a group of residents, maybe one, maybe 10, will come in and say, look, we want to pave our roads. How do we get this done? So I walk them through the special assessment process. They want to get their weeds taken care of in their lakes, invasive weed control, which is getting more popular because of the invasive weed species migrating more northward. Again, that's the role of a public servant, is to help the residents achieve improvements for their area.
Very good. So right now we're sitting here in 2024. It's currently September, just a few days after Labor Day. We have a relatively big event coming up in November that I'm sure you guys are preparing for. And I know there's a lot on the docket. There's a lot going to be on the ballots for Green Oak. So I don't know, Michael or Mark, whoever wants to walk me through what's on the ballot and what citizens should be aware of as they go to the polls this November.
Well, I'll get into what's on the ballot.
Sure.
And then Mark can explain why it needs to be on the ballot.
Okay.
In August, we had a combined millage for the township.
And real quick, can you just explain just for people what a millage is? Just because I know it's one of those things where I get asked that all the time. So I think it'd be good for you guys to just walk people through what a millage is, what it does.
So a millage is an assessment on your property value. It's $100 per $100,000 for 1 mill. So if your house is valued, assessed taxable value, and Mark, jump in if I'm wrong, then you would pay $200. Now, house value may be much higher than that. It's generally more than 50% higher. So you assess millage in order to fund the township, because the township only gets its funding from a little bit of revenue sharing from the state and the rest from the citizens within the township. On this particular election, we've split them out. So there's a 0.21 or $21 per 100,000 of home value for the township, and that's generally to cover this Prop 2 election costs. And then there's a 0.61 mils for the fire department for capital expenditures. Fire trucks have gotten very expensive. And then there's a 1 mil for the police department in order to add staffing as our township grows. And there's a good reason for that. SEMCOG has predicted that by 2030, Green Oak Township will be the largest township in the county, passing both Hamburg and Genoa Township.
Very good.
Yeah.
So those were split out. So in August they did not pass, and so in November they're all going to be split out.
They're going to be split out. One of the things that we did hear from the residents, the voters that were coming to the polls, is we had requested a 20-year millage. Yeah, we heard clearly that was too long. And so we shortened it to 10 years. So that's the one big change. And there was also the way we had worded the one portion of the millage, voters were not real keen on. And so we changed the wording on that from emergency services. That kind of is a broad statement. So that now they're police capital, fire capital, and general millage increase. And again, as Michael explained, the SEV is basically what your value of your house is. Taxable value is 50% of that. That's what your millage is based on. And for instance, if you had a $200,000 house, your taxable value is $100,000. All the total millages that we're asking for this year account for about an increase of $181 per year. So, and I can do the math all the way up to $500,000, $600,000 homes. But again, we're looking for what we need to really for the general fund is to cover the cost of Proposal 2. That's what we're trying to get back.
And Proposal 2 was the millage, or was the laws passed in 2020 that affected early voting, how we vote, those types of things. And because it was a constitutional amendment, the state was able to skirt by and say, well, sorry, it's voter approved, not an unfunded mandate.
Yeah, and along with that, again, as Michael mentioned, the early voting, he has to be open 9 days prior to each election. And that also includes a Saturday and a Sunday.
Two of them.
Two of them. So you got time and a half, and you got double time. You got election workers, as we were talking a little bit earlier. Because of election interference with outside forces, which is happening all across the nation, is we have to make arrangements for power outages, which we've had. So we have generators that now we're renting for every single precinct. And also, extension cords, and we have to cover all of our bases. That is covered out of our general fund or election budget. So again, that is what's precipitated us trying to get back to the 1 mill that we were at under as a general law township.
It should be noted that the 1 mill went into effect, and this is the first time that the township has asked to have that 1 mill restored based on the Headley reduction since the 70s. So we've done well with what we've had. With the growth has given us more income, but we finally reached a point where we actually have to ask for some more money.
Mm.
Yeah, and there's another side. I was thinking about this morning in preparation of this. If you recall, back in 2008, we had a recession. And that recession went all the way through 2011 and, into 12. And I was looking at my notes and some files this morning. Back in that era, we had seen SCV and taxable values going down. At the same rate, we had inflation up. So we were getting hit by inflation, taxable value going down. And we had done a projection back in 2015 that showed that it would take us till 2024 to get our taxable value and SEVs back up to the 2012 level.
And that was confirmed by SEMCOG as well. They predicted 2030 before everybody recovered all of their funds back, because Headley makes it so if the property values drop, your taxable value drops with it. If the property values go up, the taxable value can only go up by a maximum of 3%.
Yep.
3%. So,
well, 5% or the rate of inflation, whichever comes first.
So there's no floor to how quickly it can drop.
Correct.
But there's a measured ceiling on how much it can go back up, even if housing prices soar like they have in the last couple of years.
correct.
Absolutely.
Got it.
That is part of the problem.
So one question I have as you guys are talking, so in a 10-year period, there's 6 elections, because on the 0 year and 10 year, there's an election, and then there's one election every 2 years. How many millages out of those 6 elections are on each ballot? So if there's 6 elections, how many times does a millage come up on the ballot?
We had a police and fire millage on the August ballot, and that was to renew the millage that had been on the ballot 10 years previous to that.
I see.
So, and the townships never had one. So we're in new ground. And what we typically do, the citizens have supported us when we've asked for a road millage. We did a road millage, I think, 14 years ago. And we were very clear on what we were going to do with the money. We said, we're going to pave these roads. We're going to repave these roads and recondition these gravel roads. And the citizens trusted us, and we followed through.
Love it.
Yeah, and it was 2 years ago in 2022 that we asked the voters for a bond issue to build a new fire station, which is close to being opened up now.
Good. And the reason I ask that is because as time goes on, if I was, in Green Oak, that'd be one of my questions is how many millages, on average are we expected to see? And then how much is that going to go up over time? And it sounds like they're relatively few and far between.
Yeah.
People get used to not seeing them, what they're used to is the schools coming back almost every 2 years asking for more money.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, even though your total millage load is pretty high, how much out of every dollar goes to the township is actually very low. We're probably one of the most efficient operations that you have in government because we're not allowed to go deficit.
Yeah.
We have to balance every year.
Yeah, and I think too, because one of the duties that, and I didn't cover this, of the township supervisor, it's my requirement by law to provide a budget to the township board. So every year I do the budget, present it to the township board, and in that budget process, I think Michael will tell you that I'm pretty frugal. It's actually a better word is pretty tight. With all of our departments, it's the last thing we are going to do is ask for more money. So how do we make ends meet?
Yeah. Sounds like the federal government needs to take a page out of your playbook.
Amen.
Yep.
Fantastic. So what else should voters, citizens, people within the community know about Green Oak that you guys want them to know as we transition to next year?
I think one of the things that we want to make sure citizens are aware of is the early voting. Unfortunately, for the 2 times we've already had it, out of 18,000 voters, only about 250 to 300 took advantage of it. It's just like walking in on election day. You vote, you process your ballot, it goes into the machine, except we don't know the results until after 8 p.m. on election day. So it's a very safe and secure way to do it. In addition to that, we have absentee voting available still. We've expanded from 9 to 11 precincts in order to serve our citizens better. Please vote. And we even went so far a few elections ago to change our message. It used to be, you got a nice little sticker that says, I voted. And we changed ours to my vote counted.
Yeah.
Because I want to send that message out, that you can trust the elections that are happening in Green Oak Township.
I think that's the important one. Your vote counts and your election is secure. And I think that's an important message. And I think more importantly is this is your opportunity to elect your officials and change course or continue the course that you're on.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you both, and I'm sure there's a team of people alongside you, but it sounds like you guys are taking every effort to ensure that the elections are going off, as safely as possible. You're getting early voter information out so people can vote early, which is a tremendous benefit to people who might not necessarily have the time or might not be here, which is why absentee voting has always been nice. So I like that. I like that aspect of it. Anything else citizens should know before we close today?
Well, there's changes in roads within Green Oak Township as the state continues to put the flex lanes in. They just completed the roundabouts and pass-throughs at Silver Lake Road, which was a real challenge for us. And they're about ready to do
It was for us, too, every time we had to go to Whitmore Lake.
And they're about ready to do the same thing at 9 Mile. And then we're told that, I believe it's next week, they're going to close the Lee Road Bridge for a week or so as well. So there are traffic challenges within Green Oak Township.
Yeah.
The US 23 Silver Lake Road is obviously a challenge, and it has caused us to have to postpone what we normally call our Green Oak Day. That's where the police and the fire and the Township Hall has their open houses. And really it's a fun event, but because of that interchange and the inability to get across from both sides of the expressway, we stopped that the last 2 years. We're looking forward now that it's done next year to get back on track. I think that's a great event. We have a pretty good turnout, and and I hope with this being done, we can provide more events such as that too.
That sounds great. I certainly appreciate both of you taking the time to walk our listeners through all of that. And I would imagine it's only going to get busier as you guys trend towards November. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say. It's and that is something we want to thank you for bringing that up.
Sure.
Is that we changed the township hours. We were losing employees because of the whole push to 4-day weeks. And these were key employees. So we moved to a 4-day week as well. However, we did not reduce the amount of work hours. In fact, we expanded the hours at the township to where we're open every day from 7:30 until 5:30.
Oh, wow.
So people can come in before work now. People can come in after work. And we encourage people to do so. So that makes it better accessible. And it also provides some of that relief that we need.
Yeah, we had been looking at, the traffic flow into the township hall since the first of the year, actually even before the first of the year. And on Friday afternoons, if we seen maybe 2 residents, during the course of the afternoon or the day, we were lucky. And it really started to appear that why are we staffing all of the different departments? Lights on, computers on, for a couple residents. So this way, we actually expand the hours, and allow more accessibility to the township. And yet, during the wintertime, guess what? We don't heat it as much heat in the building. Summertime, we drop back the air conditioning down. And we don't have all the computers and lights on Friday. So again, it's another way to try to save the taxpayer some money.
And people were always saying, I can't get there by 5. And so now we're giving them a little more expanded time. And if somebody has an issue that they're not going to be able to make there by 5:30, we'll stay. The whole thing is about serving the community.
Yeah.
Mark's been doing it since 92. I joined our fire department in 86 and transitioned over to the township clerk in 2000.
Wow. Well, I certainly appreciate your guys' service to the community, and I'm sure the residents do as well. And I hope, as we go into the fourth quarter here, it's, a relatively seamless election for you.
We hope so.
We hope so too.
All right, very good. Well, Mark, Michael, thank you both so much.
Thank you
Thank
for
you
having
for
us.
having us.
All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Chamber Podcast. As always, you can find information about today's guests in the show notes. If you're listening on Spotify, pop over and check out the YouTube feed where you can see the video of today's podcast. And if you are on the audio platforms, be sure to drop a review and let the Chamber know what you think of the show. Apart from that, we'll catch you next week with another episode. Take care.